Ecstatic crowds cheer at the liberation of Europe, the end of a war against fascism that had lasted 6 years. The continent lay in ruins, divided between the advancing Soviet armies and those of the Allies. 20 to 30 million people lost their lives, hundreds of millions more displaced by a conflict triggered in part by the rise of the organised far right. 80 years later, and the legacy of World War II still lingers.
The lesson learned from West Germany, where I grew up, is that the root cause of this is not just an ideology like Nazi Germany, but it is a form of nationalism that we should overcome by building a different political system after World War II to avoid nationalism.
This desire to avoid the mistakes of the past and secure the future prosperity of the continent fueled a need to ensure political and economic stability.
And that led to a series of constellations with regard to how you organize democracy, a social compromise with labor unions, working class, middle class and business elites came together to create a very cohesive democracy that is now decaying.
Decades later, the far right is again a factor in politics. Once banished to the fringes, radical right politicians have now entered the mainstream in many European countries, voted in by people who feel alienated by the macroeconomics of the European Union and the increase in immigration.
Let's just say radical right-wing politics is clearly on the rise in Europe. In fact, in many countries in Europe, it's now the strongest political force. Hungary has been led by radical right-wing populist politician Viktor Orbán for more than 10 years now. The Netherlands, the strongest political party is a radical right-wing populist party. Austria, but even in Germany, the Alternative für Germany, it is now the second strongest party, constantly polling above 20%, which has been really unconceivable for many years.
The idea of European unity was created in part to prevent war.
This was an illusion we lived for 70-something years until Russia reminded us that wars are still something that happens on the continent, and we cannot guarantee that focusing on the pressing problems of the 21st century, like climate change and social cohesion and dealing with migration, that this is all the European Union has to address.
8 decades later, after the defeat of Nazi Germany, the unity of the continent is again under threat of war, this time with Russia. As the radical right blames migrants fleeing far-flung wars and climate change for the discontent of Europe. Alex Gatopoulos, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.